have to spend much time with me to figure out that one of my heroes is the Apostle Paul. I just love learning about Paul. I love all of the things that he did. He's really my hero. One of my favorite stories about Paul takes place when he first gets to Philippi. He's walking through the town. He's going through the town for a couple of days, a matter of days, as a matter of fact, 3 days. And a demon-possessed woman is following him, and she keeps repeating things about he is a servant of the Most High God, him and Silas. And finally, Paul rebukes the spirit in the woman and delivers her from this oppression. But what interests me about this story is that Paul was not concerned about her spiritual state. If you read the passage, he wasn't wanting to demonstrate the power of God. He was just irritated. She was bugging the stew out of him. I have to admit that I'm a little bit like Paul. The reason I'm making this video and you're having to sit through this lesson on how to perform well in academic writing is I'm just irritated. I'm tired of reading bad papers. I'm amazed at how many students get to college, get to seminary, can't craft a sentence, don't know what a paragraph is. And so I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to learn those things. But that's not the only reason I'm making this video. You may have already noticed, but if you look behind me, I'm in the Ora Byram Allison Library here at Mid-America recording this video. In this library, there are over 200,000 books, journal articles, video cassettes, DVDs, just incredible amounts of information on everything from Greek syntax to the American Revolution, just all kinds of books, all kinds of topics, just an incredible variety. But the one thing they all have in common is that they had an author who had a message. And not only did they have a message, they had a desire to communicate it. I'm assuming that you're studying here at Mid-America because you have a message that you want to communicate. When a professor asks you to write a paper, they're wanting you to develop the skill of communication. It's not enough for you to know the information. You need to know how to prepare that information to be shared with others. And so I want you to know how to communicate the truths that are important to you to a world around you who needs to hear those truths. So today we're going to be looking at how to form an idea, how to develop that idea into a topic, how to develop that topic into paragraphs, and how to write sentences that support what you're trying to say. Hopefully you'll find this helpful. Enjoy. Welcome to Basic Steps for Writing Gooder, how to improve your papers and your grades. I just want to go over some basic steps that are going to help you to write better papers. I hope this will just be a review for you, things that you should have been learning while you were in school up until this point, but maybe have forgotten. The first and most important step is going to be to read the assignment, to know what you're trying to do so that you can use the right tools. As I mentioned, a lot of this presentation is based on frustrations that I've had by reading papers that I've been receiving from students. And one of the biggest surprises for me when I became a professor is how often it is obvious a student has not read the syllabus. In online classes, I require all students to indicate in the forum that they have read the syllabus. In residential classes, I go over the syllabus page by page. Yet when it's time for papers to be turned in, the odds are about 50-50 that a student will have done the assignment that I have requested. For example, if I ask for a book report on a missionary biography, I do not want a survey of the textbook. If I ask for a strategy plan for a local church's missions program, I don't want to get a paper on a mission trip to Brazil. If the assignment is to discuss one aspect of Pauline theology, please do not write a history of his early life and missionary journeys. When a professor designs a syllabus, he or she has to list desired outcomes for the student and then construct activities, including writing assignments, that will help students achieve those goals. So assume there is a good reason for the specific details of every assignment. If you have a question about a different approach, by all means ask me or any of your professors if a different approach would be acceptable. Generally, we're flexible, but never just start off on your own in a different direction without consulting the professor. I cannot emphasize this enough. To do well on a paper, actually do what the professor has asked you to do. Don't hammer in a screw. Don't use a wrench on a nail. Second, form a thesis. Once you are clear on the topic and you know the format of the assignment, consider the point that you are trying to make. Think big picture. What is the goal in your mind other than just to pass the class? What are you trying to communicate to your audience, your professor or anybody else who might read your paper? Once you have the idea, put it in the form of a sentence or a paragraph that can set the boundary for your writing. Knowing what you want to say helps you know what you don't need to say and helps set the direction for the work you are going to do. It makes everything else a little bit more clear and a little bit easier to put together. Here is an example of a thesis statement. The history and theology of the Nation of Islam is well documented, and much research has been done in the area of cross-cultural research. However, no major work unites principles of cross-cultural communication to a Christian response to the Nation of Islam. An application of the principles of cross-cultural communication to the unique history, theology, and sociology of the Nation of Islam is needed, therefore, to help Christians share their faith effectively in this context. You see that this statement helps the author know and the reader know where the paper is going, what topics need to be covered. A chapter could be done on the theology, sociology of the Nation of Islam. A chapter could be done on principles of cross-cultural communication. A chapter could be done on how you put those things together to create a Christian response. So it outlines the paper, which then helps make the next step much more simple. The next step being making an outline, making a plan. How are you going to put your paper together? Once you have your thesis statement, you can begin brainstorming. Write out a list of all the possible ideas that are going to help you cover your topic. There are two different ways that you can make an outline. I'm sure there are others, and you may want to explore some others, but here are two basic approaches to developing an outline. Some people are linear thinkers and they just logically think in an outline. So if they were going to write on the biblical basis of missions, then they would just say, okay, I'm going to have an introduction. I want to look at the Old Testament. If I'm going to look at the Old Testament, I want to consider the meta-narrative, the law, the prophets, and the writings. Then I want to look at the New Testament. So I want to talk about Jesus and Paul and the general epistles and the apostolic era. And then I'm going to conclude by applying this theology of missions to our practice of missions. So very structured way of thinking. Other people don't necessarily think that way. They just want to just jot some ideas and then draw lines to see how they're related. And so you just kind of put here in the center of a page, you can just write down what is your thesis, what is your main idea, and then you just follow these lines around. Well, there's going to be some conversation about the New Testament, some conversation about the Old Testament. I'm going to write about law, prophets, writing. Maybe I want to add a part about the meta-narrative. I'm going to write about the New Testament, Jesus, the general epistles. Oh wait, I think maybe I should also include something about the apostolic era. But however you do that, you want to write down on paper and then begin to organize your thoughts into a flow. One advantage of putting together an outline, some people think, oh, I don't want to do an outline. I've got to hurry up and write this paper. I don't have time to spend putting together an outline. But if you're thinking, I have to write a 15-page paper, wow, that's a lot. I'm just going to start here on page 1 and I'm going to write for 15 pages. That can be a little overwhelming. But if you put a little effort into making an outline and then organizing your thoughts, then you don't have to write a 15-page paper. You write a 1-page introduction. You write an introduction to the Old Testament basis of missions, a 1-page on the meta-narrative, 1 page on the law, 1 page on the prophets, 1 page on the writings, and so forth. And pretty soon, your paper has written itself just a page at a time. Makes your process much easier. Once you have your outline, you're ready to actually start writing your paper. That means you're going to start building paragraphs. The most common error is writing a page or more without dividing the thoughts into paragraphs. This can make it difficult for the reader to follow your line of reasoning. Once you have your outline, you know where you're headed. Each of those sections is going to be supported by or explained through a series of paragraphs. A paragraph, just as a reminder, is 3 to 5 sentences built around a topic sentence. In general, the topic sentence will be followed with 1 to 3 supporting sentences and a concluding thought. Longer paragraphs would indicate a lack of structure. Shorter paragraphs point to a lack of substance. So here you see we have a properly constructed paragraph. It has 3 to 5 sentences built around a topic sentence. That first sentence is the topic sentence. I'm explaining what is a paragraph. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, and the subsequent sentences are supporting information about the topic sentence, giving further understanding of the definition. Very often I will get a paper where a paragraph may run on for 2 or 3 pages, or even an entire 15-page paper without any indentations, any indication of separate paragraphs. Please make sure that you break your paper into paragraphs of 3 to 5 sentences. Now, how are you going to craft those sentences? What makes a good sentence? Bonnie Trenga, writing in Writer's Digest, identified 4 commandments of writing good sentences. These are pretty much established rules throughout the English-speaking world. If you're going to write a sentence, first, you shall not write passively. In the English language, we tend to use active voice, so you want to make sure that the subject of your sentence is initiating and completing the action. It is not being acted upon. That would be passive voice. Do not overuse weak verbs like to be or to have. We're going to talk a little bit about proofreading, but when you proofread, one thing to look for is, do you have sentences that start "it is," "there is," "there are," "there were"? Any sentence like that, just automatically recraft. We're going to talk in a minute about how to do that. You shall not fluff is the 3rd commandment. Don't put anything in the sentence that is unnecessary. Don't just add a bunch of rambling. Get to the point and make it clear. And the 4th commandment supports that. You want to make every word necessary. Look at your sentence. Does every word help the reader understand the thought you're trying to communicate, or are you just trying to make your sentence longer? Don't make longer sentences. It does not make communication easier. So let's look at some sample sentences and see if we can figure out what's wrong. There are several ways in which mission can be financially sustained. By the way, I just want to tell you that every sentence I'm putting up here, I've either seen in a paper that a student has handed in, or I've seen it in a publication. These are sentences that people have actually written, and we want to look at how we can make them better. So here's the first one. There are several ways in which missions can be financially sustained. I just told you, you never want to start a sentence with "there is" or "there are." It's weak. You want to get right to the point. So what is the most important word in this sentence? You're wanting to talk about missions. So you could rewrite this sentence: mission work can be sustained financially in several ways. That's a much stronger sentence. There are several ways in which mission can be financially sustained. Doesn't really point the most important word out to the reader, but mission work can be sustained financially in several ways. Gets to the point directly. Very similarly, we have the second sentence. It's likely and expected that the other prisoners and the jailer heard the testimony of their songs. It's likely. It is likely. There are actually a couple of things wrong with this. One is you're starting with "it is," but you're also using a contraction, which is not acceptable in formal writing. So rather than starting with "it is likely and expected," a stronger sentence would be, "One may expect that the other prisoners and the jailer heard the testimony of their song." That's just one example, but you're not starting with "it is." This is an intriguing principle. There's a lot wrong with this sentence. First of all, we're back to "this is," but we're also talking about this is an intriguing principle. What is? So what is an intriguing principle? To whom is it intriguing? We really don't even have enough information. We might be able to strengthen the structure a little bit by saying this principle is intriguing, but it still leaves those questions hanging. We don't have enough information here to have a complete thought. Make sure you put enough content in the sentence that it actually communicates something. I went to the store, I got milk and cookies. This is a run-on sentence. You need to put punctuation here, a semicolon, or you could rewrite it as 2 sentences. I went to the store, period. I got milk and cookies, period. Or you could use the word "and." I went to the store and I got milk and cookies. Everyone needs to bring their pencil. Everyone is singular, there is plural, so you need to make sure that there's consistency within your sentence. Each person needs to bring his or her pencil. Everyone 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 needs to bring his or her pencil. I like this sentence. Smelling like rotten fish, My sister took the trash out. This phrase, smelling like rotten fish, is going to belong to the next noun, sister. I'm hoping the sister did not smell like rotten fish. A better way to clarify that sentence would be to say that my sister took the trash out, which was smelling like rotten fish. Put the description closer to the noun you want it to describe. All through the hand of God. This is a sentence fragment. We don't know what happened. There's no subject. There's no verb. And so that sentence needs to be rewritten completely because it's really not explaining anything. I like this. I saw this on a magazine cover. Rachael Ray finds inspiration in cooking her family and her dog. She's an amazing cook, that Rachael Ray, but I don't think she's ever tried to cook her family or her dog. What she needs to do is watch her punctuation. Rachael Ray actually finds inspiration in 3 things. She finds inspiration in cooking, comma, her family, comma, and her dog. One challenge in missions education is understanding the city. I'll give you a minute to look at that and see if you can determine where the error is. It's a very common error. One challenge in missions education with the apostrophe would indicate that the person being educated is mission. The education belongs to mission. Actually, just leaving that apostrophe out is what's the best way to fix that sentence. One challenge in missions education is understanding the city. Apostrophes indicate possession, not plural. A plural is indicated generally just by the adding of s or es, no apostrophe necessary. Can you get some apples from the store? Same problem, no apostrophe. How are you going to make sure that you're not making these mistakes over and over again? Because you're going to proofread and then you're going to proofread again. First time you want to proofread electronically. Use a software program like Spellcheck, which is already on your computer, or Grammarly, which isn't that expensive. These programs will not solve all of your problems, but there is no excuse for not correcting a mistake that your computer could find in 30 seconds. Never turn in a paper that you haven't gone through Spellcheck on. Just let it look through your paper and see if it can find obvious errors for you. Then make sure you proofread again personally. Be sure you review your paper yourself because Spellcheck won't catch poor word choice if the word is spelled correctly. So you're going to have to read your paper on your own and make sure that you haven't made any homonyms, words that sound the same, and so Spellcheck put it that way, but it's not the word that you wanted, or if you just used a poor word choice. Patiently. What I mean by this is you should put your paper down for at least 24 hours and then go back and reread it. A fresh look after some rest will give you new insights, give you new ways of expressing thoughts. A little bit more clarity will come to your paper if you do this. Then you want to proofread socially. You know what you're thinking, but another reader may not. Find somebody that's in the class with you or a friend who has some experience in reading. Swap papers. Let them read, and you can help each other out by pointing out false assumptions, unclear transitions, catching mistakes that the other one didn't. You're going to be able to improve each other's paper by looking over each other's shoulder. And then finally, you want to proofread invertedly. I admit I made this word up. What I mean is you want to read your paper backwards. Your mind is an amazing, amazing gift from the Father. And when you read a paper or when you read anything, your mind automatically corrects mistakes and you don't even know it. You've probably seen different things on Facebook where people have replaced letters with numbers or scrambled the letters in the middle of a word and you're still able to read it. Your brain just fills in those things and puts them the way they should be. That makes it a little hard to proofread sometimes. And so if you will read your paper from bottom to top instead of top to bottom, you're more likely to catch some mistakes. It's harder for your brain to fill in the gaps if you're reading backwards. So I just want to encourage you to do that. Just as a review, some of the common errors that we've pointed out as we've gone through this little video, as we have talked about the importance of names. It's important that you use the whole name of a person the first time he or she is mentioned in your paper, whether it's a person you're writing about, if you're reading a missionary biography, for example, or if it's someone you're quoting as a source. The first time you would use their full name, and then after that, refer to them only by the last name. So you would talk about Hudson Taylor was a great missionary to China. From then on, it would be Taylor did this, Taylor did that. Never Hudson. Apostrophes don't belong in plural words. Apostrophes only are to be used to indicate possession. We're going to talk about another use of apostrophes in a minute and why you wouldn't need to use that in formal writing. So for formal writing purposes, apostrophes are only used to indicate possession. Commas are essential. They clarify thoughts, they prevent ambiguity and misstatements. So make sure you use commas. Redundancy should be avoided at all costs. Don't repeat yourself. Don't use the same word 4, 5, 6 times in the same paragraph or on the same page. Don't use the same sentence structure. Don't start every list with first, second, third, fourth, lastly. Use different ways to communicate so that the reader does not become bored. By person, I mean only use third person in formal writing. There may be some exceptions. Ask your professor on a particular assignment if it would be okay to use first person. But in general, in formal writing, we do not use first or second person, meaning we don't say I, we, us, you. We only say he, she, it, they. Contractions are also not generally accepted in formal writing. That's the other use of the apostrophe. An apostrophe can mean possession, or an apostrophe can mean I left some letters out. So I wrote isn't with an apostrophe. But you're not going to use those in formal writing. You don't use contractions. So make sure you've left all of those things out of your paper. As I said, this is just a quick review of what you hopefully learned already in grammar school, high school, and college English classes. In case anything is still unclear, remember that you still have some resources available to you. If you are a bachelor student, be sure to check out the MLA Handbook. If you are a master or doctoral student, you need to consult Kate Turabian's Manual for Writers. This book has many helpful tips on writing in general. I would strongly encourage you to look at it even if you're a bachelor student. The first half of the book is just good tips on how to make a good sentence, how to make a strong paragraph, how to develop your thesis. It's worth looking into. On the internet, you can find some templates that are going to help you with your papers. Just be sure that they're consistent with the seminary style guide, which you can download in Moodle. Make sure that there are not errors in the template that then you're putting into your paper. And then finally, I recommend C.M. Gill's book, Essential Writing Skills for College and Beyond. Just good tips for how to be a better writer. If you have any questions, I'm always available for conversation. If you're in the Cordova area, come by my office or drop me an email. I'd be glad to help you. Hope you enjoy writing this semester. Hope you enjoy writing from now on, learning better how to communicate. Well, I hope you were able to get some good notes, get some good ideas. Remember the things that we've talked about. You're going to need to bring them back up as you do book reports, presentations, other projects for this class and other classes. So keep the ideas that you got from this handy. The resources that I recommended, put them on your bookshelf, consult them often, and hopefully this will help you as you develop your skill as a master communicator of the truths that God has revealed to you, whatever topic you're studying. God bless.